If somebody came to you as a senior in college and asked you, how do I become you? Meaning, how do I arrive at your position 10 years from now? What would you tell them when it comes to graduate training? Would any of you recommend that they get a PhD in history? Don't. I could have predicted that, Ted.
I will go next. I would recommend that you pursue a PhD in history with the awareness of what the career prospects are in the academy. I think that going into it with more awareness that you're developing skills rather than you're training to be one thing, which is a history professor, will be helpful. And maybe that would shape your decisions about dissertation topic. I think Ted's point about thinking of at the outset how to write for broader audiences is very wise. So maybe if you go into your program thinking that I'd like to keep my options open, maybe that would shape some of your decisions. So I think that I think historical training is remarkable. I mean, I think that Phil mentioned this before. The extent to which we can synthesize just tremendous amounts of information is not in any other discipline that I've seen. And I think that the rigor with which we employ sources, read them critically, is not something that I've seen in other disciplines. I know I'm biased, but I do. But I trust colleagues with historical training to a huge degree because I think that it's really it's rigorous. I love the way it makes you think about problems, thinking about evidence. I think it's very valuable. I mean, I think that it should be about how to tell your story, knowing that most people don't have PhDs in history, won't know what that means, and won't have the same sense that we do of how valuable that training is. We can talk about how to do that, but I would recommend. I mean, if somebody wants to spend 5-8 years studying history, becoming great at being a historian, with a wide open with eyes about what the end of that might look like, I think it's great. I'm happy with where I've landed, and I would recommend it to people if they have sufficient information.
Let me just expand on don't a little bit. The average time to degree in history in the United States is, to my knowledge, 9.5 years. Right? That means that half people take longer than that, if I understand anything about mathematics and quantitative stuff. So, and I agree with Stephanie, I mean, it can work, but most programs will explicitly or implicitly fight you almost every step of the way. So if you're going to tell an undergraduate to get a PhD, bearing in mind that their secret hope is probably to become a college professor, really. If you're going to tell a senior in college to get a PhD, to get a think tank job, you're telling them that on average it's going to be 10 years and they're going to have to fight regularly against the instincts of their advisor, the department, and the profession as a whole. Now that can be done, but it takes real determination and real character to pursue that, and my view is that most people who go into graduate school really want to go the academic route, which is totally what I wanted to do. So I would have great reluctance in recommending an undergraduate do that, because as possible as it is for a career path, and we all illustrated it is possible, the barriers to doing that from being a senior at college are very, very high. And I can sit here and tell someone that they're high, but you know what? They won't believe me until they've experienced it themselves, because every one of them has the sneaking belief that they're going to be the one who gets that job at Princeton, not everyone else. And you know what? They're all thinking that.
So I guess I want to, I find myself agreeing with both Stephanie and Ted on this, but I want to step back just a little bit, because I think for me, one of the things that I've found, and we haven't really talked about this, but certainly happy to get into it, I think there is as a researcher in policy-focused work, and this is not specifically about whether to get a PhD in history, but a PhD in general, I think there is a real glass ceiling for researchers in the policy side of things. That's not true at all think tanks, but in general, everyone in a policy field wants the killer statistic, wants to be able to hold up a report, bring it to Congress, use it in the media to prove their point, use it to rile up the grassroots and get people active. But if you're not the person taking it to the Hill, if you're not the person talking to the media, if you're not the person riling up the grassroots, you're not going to succeed. And if you look at the average person in a policy job, they didn't go the PhD route, whether that's history or anything else, and they're not researchers. So, in my own career, I happen to have found that I really like management, I really like strategy, the kind of wider policy landscape, and I've very consciously moved toward that, but I've definitely seen people very quickly, come in at mid-level because of a PhD, and then very quickly max out. And I think even for some of the folks that I've seen that have gotten those really nice, long-term, good positions at a think tank where they can be somewhat like an academic. I mean, I have one colleague, a mentor of mine, who was at a think tank that I will not name for 14 years, and they just decided to go in a different direction and cut her entire program. And, it's hard if you are that senior researcher to move somewhere else, whereas if you are the kind of policy person that has that range of skills, that knows how to do some lobbying, knows how to do some media work, all of that, it's going to be much easier to shift, it's going to be much easier to move around, and there are just much more of those positions. Happy to talk more about that, but I do want to say that as a flag in general as we talk about research in the think tank and policy world.